Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. Here we go. We are moving on to interiors. We're going to take a look at a specific scene from a commercial that I recently shot. It's going to be fun. There's going to be a little bit of mood to it. If you like this kind of content, if you want to see more of this stuff, if you want more behind the scenes, if you want to know how all of this stuff comes together and every single decision so that you can steal it, make it your own, and convince people that you too can make pretty pictures, check out the link in the description below. Patreon, that's the spot. Without that support, I would not be making these videos. Plus there's other extra stuff over there too, which will hopefully make you better, right? Don't join the Patreon unless you want to get better. That's the only reason that you should do it. Okay, so we've got, last time, I think you should remember, if you haven't seen part 1 of the video, go down below. You'll see some of the backstory on this commercial. There's a gentleman, and he has a dog that's following him in his house. The guy doesn't realize it because that dog represents depression. It's a black puppy, a jet black puppy, in a dark, down, depressing commercial. It's not going to be easy to light that puppy, right? Because it's very, very dark. Anyway, he's going to come in the kitchen, and last time we saw him, he was outside. He was carrying his groceries. Now he's going to come in the kitchen, plonk his groceries down, and, start the weekend, right? Who knows what he's going to be doing, but he's plonking his groceries down, and he's looking around. He doesn't notice the dog that's following him. Ta-da! So we look at our location scout photos. Again, I have given you the benefit of the doubt of showing you the photos that we took at the end of the location scout when we knew the exact angles that we wanted to use. So we are cheating just a little bit. But what's going to happen? Man comes in, drops groceries. He's going to stand here. Why are we in this doorway? Why aren't we over here? Why aren't we over there? Because this creates depth. Anytime you can shoot through a doorway, right? I've done entire videos on this in the past. If you can shoot somebody's shadow, if you can shoot in a mirror, if you can shoot a doorway, all of these things create what? Layers. Why are layers good? Because it makes it more three-dimensional. So we are using these cheat codes in real life. Same thing here. The angle, like what are we doing with the angle? Why not crab left a little bit or crab right and shoot this way through here? Because this angle is nice, right? We don't want things coming directly at the camera or directly flat to camera. I want to see the corner of the room, because the corner of the room adds more depth. Also, one of the benefits here is now we can take a look at the reference images that the director sent through. Okay, so this is the reference for the kitchen. So we can start to analyze this. Now, do you have to do this every single job? Like, am I doing this in my head when I see these references? I mean, you are, but it takes 2 seconds. What are we looking for? Look at how much light to dark to light to dark there is, right? Peppering the frame with contrast. See these little tiny, like we've got a little bit of doorway in there. Remember that. We've got harsh sunlight from a window that we can't see. Okay. We've got angles of the tables. We've got, how many layers have we got? We got 1 here. We got 2, well, really 2, 3, then 4, then 5, 6, 7, 8. What is that? That's the same wall. 8. 9 is the door that's open. 10 is the wall. 11 is the back wall of the back room, and even that little window. We got a lot of layers in this shot in what could be super, super flat. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for layers. Okay, let's remember that. What are we seeing here? We're seeing here in this reference, the go-to. If you are in a kitchen, right, this is the go-to. What do I mean by that? We're lighting through the window that we cannot see out of. That's a huge win. Okay, he's parked upstage of the window, like this way of the window. He's not down here to where all the light is going past him. He's this way and all the light's coming this way at him. Okay, so that's how you get this wrap around him. See how it's light here, dark here. That's because of how he has positioned his face relative to the key light, which is the window in this case. It also means that we don't have to balance, like the cheat code here is we don't see outside. And if you don't see outside, you don't have to balance your exposure to anything, which means you can do this with a very small lamp. It doesn't have to be near as big, where if you crab right and now you're looking out the window and you have to hold the highlights in the window, you need a much bigger source. Bigger source is actually better. It just takes more time and more energy, and it's more expensive, and it's more everything, really. Also notice, like, okay, well, it's a pretty interesting kitchen because we don't have any white walls. White walls are boring. Look at that little tiny fridge too. Oh, back in the old days. Anyway, so these are the references. This is the mood, the style that we're trying to go for. We come back to our location. Okay, white tiles. Yeah, it's not great, but at least it's not white walls, right? It's like this salmon colored walls. That's interesting. And again, here, if we use the depth, we can make it real dark by just shaping the light so that it's not going everywhere from this window, right? Because, oops, let's come this way. This window is just here in this frame. Okay, just to give you an idea, you can see stove, stove, window, window. So we're going to light through there. Now, those of you who have followed along with this channel or the podcast for a long time, what do you think I'm going to do with this window? Right? Do you think we're just going to push? Imagine here's the window and here's our guy. Are we just going to push level through here, all one level? No, we're not going to do that. Why? Because that's boring. What are we going to do? We're going to have old mate standing here, and I'm going to try and get harder light on his body and softer light on his face. And then I'm going to try and get as much neg as humanly possible in this room to take away all of the light that is coming from that window, right? To create a little bit of shape. You don't have, if we go back to the reference, you don't get this look here by having a ton of bounce, right? This is not 3-point lighting that you learned in film school. This is different. This is moodier. Okay, let's go to our storyboards. Now you'll see what I'm talking about here. In comes old mate. He drops his bags. Cut to, I think we actually cut here first to the dog who's in the doorway. And then we've got shot of dog and guy in the room. That's it. We're out of the scene. One of the things that was tricky about this whole job is that you got to remember that the puppy is super small and we're shooting anamorphic frame. Even though we're on full frame and we're on the black wings, we're still shooting for 239, which means the camera has, you got to be on a, you don't want to be on a super wide lens because then you start seeing all this nonsense left and right, which means we got to be really far back to get these two in the frame together. That becomes the challenging bit, is how do you get both of these two in the frame together? You need the door. You need the doorway. Like, you need the depth that comes with the doorway, or else you're never going to see them in the same frame together, right? You'd end up with, like, if you have to be inside the room, you're going to either end up on an 18 millimeter or you're going to have a shot like that with no dog. And then not a happy director or happy anybody, really, because they can't see the dog. Okay, from there, let's go to our final images here. Okay, so this is what we ended up with for the wide shot. Notice, I mean, it's significantly darker here, right? Significantly darker. We're way, 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 way down. So lighting wise, you can see that this is that in that last video, we looked at the exterior of this window and you can see now it's actually raining outside. We were hoping, we didn't want the sun on this side of the building blasting into this window. We wanted the sun. We were actually shooting this the worst time of day if we were doing exteriors. We wanted the sun directly on top of the house. Why? Because we didn't want to have to deal with it. Number one, we didn't want all of this front lit out here because then we would have to expose for it. And you're thinking, well, Patrick, you could just put ND on the windows. Yeah, that takes time. Right? If we can avoid it with schedule, why would we bother? And it's easy to screw up ND. And you're like, well, Patrick, you could just net it down. Yeah, you could come up with lots of solutions. I'm telling you the solutions that I like to come up with. So we do this at the worst time, sun right on top. Unfortunately for us now, it's raining out there. We don't want it raining in the actual ad. We want to have a little bit of level in here because if it's raining or if it's just overcast, you don't get enough push into the room, which means you then have to open up, you have to expose more, and then everything flattens off, and it's not a great look. So what we have over here, I think we got two, maybe just one M40, and we're pushing it into the room. And then what you'll see here is we're naturally, I mean, I think it is soft hobbed. So there is a frame out there where, see how it's harder here than it is up here? And he doesn't turn in this shot, but you can also see it on the wall. Sorry, on the back wall here. You can see how it's softer down here, or sorry, harder down here, and then softer up here. We're doing that with the actual thing in the window to block some of that level, but then also we're softening it outside. So you've got hard light underneath. We've got our curtains. We didn't go shears on here, and I think that was a time thing. We also went shears on all the other windows, so just as a little way to mix it up there. But really, that's it for lighting. There's nothing else going on here. There's no room ambient. All of this return level here is, again, a trick that I talked about in the last video. There's windows on this side of the house that we never ever see. So I just had the grips black those windows, and then I can go, right when we're about to roll, I can just peel back a little bit of the black to give me just a little bit of this, right? Not to where it's completely dark down and crushed, I still want to see a little bit of it. Give me a little bit, but let me be in control of that. And those are those nice easy wins when you can use just the ambient day. And that's again why you want to shoot this at a time when the sun is beating directly down on the house, because if I open up this curtain and it lets in actual sunlight, direct sunlight, it's going to be way too hot. So we want to just let in a little bit of soft ambient light just by pulling back those blacks. So that's one angle. You can see here again, like, how does this match up with the reference? Well, you think back to that kitchen reference, we're sneaking in little elements that create depth, trying to get as many, again, layers as we possibly can. What have we got? 1, and then we've got 2, then you've got 3 to the pole, 4 to him, 5 to the back wall, then you've got 6 to the outside, 7, maybe 8 if you count that pole. So 8 compared to 12, still a lot of depth in a shot. And I like this overhang too up here. And then you can see, oh, this is what we took on the day for Artemis stills. You can see we wanted to get a little bit more of that room back there. Didn't end up happening because the door was no good. And then we move on to our dog shot. So this is, actually we should probably do the other wide first. This is wide shot of dog sitting there while man is rubbing his face from his headache. And you can see this pretty much matches almost perfectly. I'd say there's a little bit more fill here than the reference shot. And that's just because as we pump in level, we've got I think there's 2 4x floppies actually in that room over there, but we're just not able to take away enough light. And he's got a white shirt on that's filling him in quite a bit. But you can see in this frame, even almost better, as you can see how it's hotter here than it is up here? That's because, remember, we've got that section that is softened off up at the top of the window, and at the bottom of the window, which is anything below here, that's not softened. So it just gives you that nice little gradient across his body. The only other thing we're doing for lighting here is that we're creating this, see this line here? This line is just to, number one, make a point of difference and add a little bit to the wall. You can see how the shadow of that door frame is just over here. See how it's dark to that side of the door frame? That just gives it that little tiny bit of shape. And it also gives us this little push into the room plus exposure on an all black dog. The entire job, we were hitting that dog with so much level, and you can barely see any of it except the eye lights, which is not halfway bad. Here, there's a little guitar in there. Would it have been nice to have like a little glow? Maybe. But then again, we were pushing level this way. So then the thought of like bringing in level from the opposite direction, not as good. So, I mean, it does seem, it's nice and down and kind of moody. Maybe we could go a little bit more with a little bit more vignette in the grade. Just pull down some of those extra levels here so he pops out a little bit more. But other than that, I mean, I like that shot. We've gone from board to finished product. Ta-da! And without moving anything. You know, the other wide to this shot, nothing changes except we put 2 4x floppies in there and we add this light. But we, you know, the electrics have already added this light by the time we land here because we shot the other wide first. Okay, from there we completely spin around. Now we're looking down at the dog, and you can see we've still got our backlight, which was there before. We've just cranked it up quite a bit. And then we've got our little eye light, which is on the ground right here. I forget the type of light, but again, it's like a little source 4, little tiny LED source 4, where you're just blasting it directly at the dog. Like you can't see the shadow from that light. And the reason that you can't see the shadow from that light is because we're missing, right? You don't want to miss into the wall back here, right? If you're talking to the gaffer or to the best boy who's holding that lamp, you don't want him to miss this way. You want him to miss this way, right? Because then it's way harder to see that shadow on that back wall. So we're going to try and hit the dog right in the face with the light to get those 2 eye lights and to get any exposure here. But we don't want to see the shadow on the wall. So again, we played with the backlight a little bit to try and get a little bit more angle and create this thing. But really, the mood is set in the other shots. And then we added another lamp back here just to give us that blue effect on the ground because it was a little bit reflective. And that's the shot, right? Board. Let's see, board. Ta-da. Real shot. Yay. Up here, same thing. We got there in the end. We didn't have long for this stuff. And it ends up looking like, okay. I mean, it's in that world. And that's the idea. You try and make the best you can with the cards that you're dealt, ladies and gentlemen. That is going to do it for this one. Many thanks. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.